How would you like to achieve your first million? And today we have Sean with us, joining from Atlanta, USA. And he's a business coach and also is using his expertise as sports coach, bringing it to business. So Sean, tell us, what are the 5 steps that you recommend to entrepreneurs out there in order to make first million?
Welcome to Unstoppable Podcast with Harry Sardinas, inspiring conversations with influential millionaires, investors, thought leaders, entrepreneurs who are making a massive difference with their innovative products and services, and sharing the challenges and wisdom of how they sold their first million.
To make your first million. Well, I think in order to make your first million, you have to stay in business, right? And so one of the things I learned as a basketball coach that absolutely translate to when I work with business leaders today is the need to not just focus upon acquiring talent. Every organization wants talent. And to not just focus upon strategy, because every organization focuses upon strategy. That missing third piece that I discovered when I was coaching basketball that absolutely relates to business is the issue of culture. And it's your culture that's going to determine how well your talent implements that strategy. And the 5 steps you need to take to make sure that you maintain your business and continue to grow it with great people to implement that strategy are the 5 steps that I teach as part of building rapid teamwork or building a sticky culture. And that is focusing on goals and relationships and expectations and accountability and thanks.
Culture. Some in this broadcast, Unstoppable 5 steps how to make your first million. When I ask entrepreneurs if you need to start all over again, what a key thing that you will pay more attention? They are telling me, Harry, is culture. If I knew that this business is gonna take me 10 times, 100 times out there than I thought, and these very few people that they were there with me at the beginning, I nurtured them. I translate the culture that actually when we grow, we can improve that culture because people think that the culture also evolves because when you have a startup, you have 5, 10, 15 people with you working 8, 12 hours, giving everything in order to make that to succeed. But then when you span and you have 200, 300 employees, you cannot expect everybody to be working in that culture. The culture also evolves with the growth of the company. But Sean, the based in the answer that I have given in this broadcast, when we started the company, and actually when we're running the company and growing the company, even corporations, we see that sometimes nobody pays attention too much to culture until something happens. And then you can get out of business. We have, with issues with culture, we have stories out there. We're not going to mention companies that wow, they have to pay attention. Some of them they can never go back. They literally have gone out of business just because I don't know. They were selling clothes. They were sending an image that or male white people, whatever. And when they find out that they have clients from all types of they were not only white. The people were buying from them, and these by far those companies, and they have failed. So culture, not only with the team, with the employees, but also what kind of culture you reflect, because not only your team have to resonate with your culture, but also your clients, the people buying from you. So tell us a little bit more, Sean.
Yeah, well, let me do 2 things because I think you're absolutely right here. I think the first thing is, how do you define culture? And the issue that I get into when I first have these coaching conversations with leaders and business owners is they think that culture is time off, or it's perks, or it's the break room, or it's foosball tables. And culture, again, those are nice things to have, but they don't define culture. Culture, when I work with organizations, is very simply defined as the behaviors that are allowed and repeated. It's about the behaviors that you see your people repeating over and over. Those ultimately become systems, and systems can obviously scale. But with culture, you need to define your values. And the issue is when you go from a very small organization of 1 or 2 founders, or a very, very small team of a startup, you understand those values and you're working together very closely, exactly like you mentioned. But as you begin to grow and add people and add complexity, how do you make sure that your culture scales? Well, it goes back to behaviors, and those behaviors need to be examples of those values. And so a lot of times I'll work with organizations to clarify not just what is your mission, again, back to that first thing of goals, but then what are the relationships you've built and what are the expectations that you set regarding those values. And I think that, to your point, the problem that leaders get into, and that especially small business owners get into, is when you neglect something, you give it a chance to get worse. And you need to absolutely shine a spotlight on your culture, because the most expensive and destructive issue on your team is the one that you haven't addressed. And oftentimes it's that culture where you see, again, we've all had leaks or problems in our house that you end up having to go back, and the damage is significant from something that really started very, very small. And if we can catch something when it's small, it doesn't end up becoming something that sabotages the business that we've invested in building.
Underperforming employees, right? Something that is out there in corporate everywhere. And let me tell you what is the main reason, in my opinion, which is actually when people bring those employees, those team members to the organization, they haven't checked, they're reading a CV, okay? And they are seeing, reading there if that person have the qualifications to do the job, that is assigned to do. There is nothing there to the people hiding, taking consideration in culture. And to give you an example, in our own organization, in 17 years that I'm in business, from all our team members, we never hear from anybody in 17 years tell me, Harry, this is not my job. The reason for that, the reason for that is when we hire them, we made them very clear that this is an organization where we are not too many people, and we have to be proactive. Even this broadcast, I call my IT director to this podcast, and I ask him, look, we want to do a podcast. And he's telling me, what? What's that? I hear, what? This why you want to do a podcast? And said, look, I don't have any idea. Clearly, you don't have either. So, and they told me, Harry, come, give us 3 weeks, and let's do some research, and let's find out something. And after 3 weeks, they come back to me and they told me, Harry, just press the button. That's it. And upload the video. Don't worry. We go to your social media. We get to everyone. We're going to sell all the links to everybody we interview. But this is the culture that we have in our organization. And of course, if somebody comes with a different set of values, that they are used to a specific type of job, and is a repeated job, and things new not going to appear, is never this type of someone with this background will fit in our organization. Maybe in another organization, they are perfect, but not in our. So what we see in culture is that the reason that when eventually sometimes we have underperforming employees, the reason is because the culture that employee, that person have itself, it doesn't match the culture that we follow as a company. So Sean, how can we communicate better in the hiring process? Because on the other hand, once the person is in my opinion, I don't care who made the mistake or whatever. Once we bring somebody in, we try as much as we can to communicate the culture of the company, to give them chance, to give it a space, to see if the person can adapt. This is a very expensive situation, and very rarely the person stays, to be honest. They can stay 1 year, 2 years. They know that we're trying, but it doesn't, the values that we have doesn't match with the values or with the type of that person wants to operate. So tell us, how can we improve performance in companies, and how is it culture really important to increase productivity in the companies out there?
Yeah, with those underperforming employees, right? Because every organization at some point, you're going to have that employee or those employees that you understand
What's the reason?
aren't overachieving, that need to have a nudge of some kind, and sometimes aren't the perfect fit. And here's where, again, I do a number of team building events, and I'll do a half day or a full day of training and activities to improve awareness and connections with an organization. But that team building, as important as it is, isn't as important as the team building that occurs when you choose your employees, when you actually bring somebody in for that interview and you're identifying who's going to be a good fit for our culture, for our values, for the behaviors that are going to actually help us to maintain and sustain the success that we want to have and do things the way that we do it. Because that ultimately is culture. How we do things are those behaviors. And here's what I found. When people hire, and you already said this, Harry, oftentimes they only look at technical skills, those things that show up on a resume. And yes, you have this skill, and yes, you have experience with this platform or with this process. And instead of looking only at technical skills, we need to be that much more intentional in building our team and who we bring on to make sure that people don't become underperforming because of that. In interpersonal skills. And what I tell leaders and when I work with their teams is, you are often hired for your technical skill, but you're either fired or admired for interpersonal skills, for those understood values and behaviors that make you a winning teammate. And I think, to your point, the best people on the best teams don't ever say that's not my job. They're constantly asking themselves, what does the team need? And they're taking the initiative to do what your team did to make sure that they can contribute what their skills offer so that other people can be successful.
Getting with corporate training, and it's a point that you stretch at the beginning, and it's true that people think that culture is just about teamwork, to do a game. However, if someone, I've done it, I've done corporate trainings, and I realized that when you play games with the team, the people behave in games how they behave actually in the company itself. And sometimes the team doesn't realize that we are doing this corporate training. We are playing games with the staff, but in the way that they are playing that game, we can draw a lot of conclusions that we can reflect how, because this is the CEO of the company. The CEO come and tell us, Harry, they're coming late. They don't want to rotate. They want to this. They want to this. Fix it. This is how they come to me. And then we prepare a tailor workshop for that company, and we design some games. And after we can come back with the report and say, look, this is the situation here. These employees, they're not fitting for the culture in this sector. Maybe put them around here, try to move them around, try to replan the whole thing, because in the current design, it doesn't work. There's a lot of friction. And so, Sean, I know that sometimes CEOs and HR managers and leaders organizations, they see that, bringing a corporate training like you or to the organization is like, well, I have this money to spend. Let me bring anybody. Let me do this. And they're gonna have some fun. I don't really care. How important is to improve the performance of the organization? Because I done it myself, and you see, when somebody say when you play chess, somebody that is looking from outside can even see more than when the people they are inside the organization. So how important is corporate training in order to bring someone from outside to actually assess the productivity in the company and assess if that team is actually enrolled with the culture of the company, or what sometimes a little change can make a massive difference for the company. So what's your view on this?
Yeah, well, I think that training normally takes two forms within organizations. And some of the training is necessary technical training. They need to have a certain set of skills. They need to understand a platform. They need to be introduced to a process and have a chance to work through that. And technical training is important and valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what I do. And that's not what a lot of trainers do, because the other type of training that you mentioned is that interpersonal skill, is how do you actually develop people as leaders and as teammates to be more effective and to be better in their role because they have increased awareness. And my job when I go in, and I love the fact that you mentioned games, because I do facilitate activities and a lot of them are challenges and a lot of them are fun. And I want people to have a great time during my events. But if all they do after that 3 hour half day or 6 hour full day session is leave and they come back and say, man, we had a great time with Sean, I've not done my job. I want to make sure that they have a great time, but those challenges and the laughter and the conversations and the interactions and the discussion that follows, they need to be relevant and provide actionable insights that help them be better moving forward. I want to make sure that 3 months or 3 years later, they're using vocabulary that I introduced so that the team maintains and continues to improve their productivity. And I think that specifically, when you think about the type of training that is really something that moves the meter and changes the trajectory of a team, everything that you do, and this is what led to my most recent book, honestly, Harry, is what effective leaders do. That book that's coming out in June is completely focused upon the fact that leaders and teammates don't get better because they have more experience. We've all had a teammate or a leader that's been in a role for 15 years and they've not
Mm-hmm.
done a better job. What gives people the chance to do a better job is increased awareness. And it's that awareness and appreciation of their tendencies and how their attitude and actions affect others who depend on and who they depend on. It's that awareness that gives them the information and the empathy and the inspiration to then move forward with different behaviors that affect people and outcomes in a better way.
Yeah. So then, the performance of the employees, the this is one of the most powerful thing that we can do when we're doing this type of training. I agree 100% with you. It's not about having fun and say, wow, I have a great time and we spend the whole afternoon playing games and we have a lot of fun. Is that design that type of game, Sean, that the team members can discover and learn more from themselves and actually learn more how they can achieve more together. And they draw the same conclusion just by playing. And as facilitator, uh, your role is be they are all having fun, but the facilitator has to be paying a lot of attention because the next game is not what you have planned. The next game is what this audience really need in order to get the outcome that they want to they we want to achieve for that
Mhm.
company. However, this, in my opinion, this type of training and facilitation program have a massive impact. I mean, there's still people writing from people that we did corporate training long time ago. Harry, it was amazing, and we keep doing it. The employees also in litigation. So companies have an untapped sometimes in a small increase in productivity make a massive difference, and it depends of the performance of the people, on the performance of the culture. So who do you think that is responsible in order to increase productivities in the organization? Is the CEO, is the management team, is the employee, is you as a trainer that change the dynamic of the situation? Who is actually responsible for underperforming teams?
Who is responsible? That is such a powerful and I think important question. And a lot of the stuff that I do in training is based upon inspiring personal accountability. Because the issue with whining teammates, the people that point blame and want to, say it's so and so's fault or it's such and such's fault, or here's the excuse, is they'll point at anything other than themselves. And I think that leaders, regardless of position, again, position doesn't grant you leadership. Leadership is influence because of the behaviors that other people have when you interact with them. And you can choose to be a leader regardless of your role. Now, it's easier to lead when you have the authority of a position or a title. And so you want that manager or that vice president or that owner to lead because they're taking accountability and they're pointing at themselves as being responsible. But the best teammates in your organizations are the ones that are doing exactly that. They're the ones pointing at themselves. What does the team need? What can I take initiative on so that I'm solving problems instead of just pointing at them and blaming somebody else? And so I think that ultimately the purpose of any training, the purpose of any leadership development is to improve awareness of our tendencies and our personality and how we interact with others, to make sure that we're more aware of and appreciative of the skills and personalities and challenges of the people that depend on us, and absolutely to inspire personal accountability, which is almost always the result. I think that all accountability is really a symptom of empathy. And if we can build into people a desire to accomplish a compelling common goal, and if we can build into a team an appreciation for and a care for the people that they actually are working with, if you care about a goal and you care about the people that you're achieving that goal with, that's going to drive the accountability that makes you that much more engaged.
Leadership is skill. The more you practice, the better you become. And very often in the organization, we have a team member that is achieving a great results, is doing amazing, and is the best performing. And then somebody have the great idea, you know what, let's make it manager. And now we have a person in the position that, yeah, is a great employee and achieved the highest mark, but now is managing the team with zero leadership skills. On the other hand, you have another teams where you have 2-3 people that they're performing amazing. They are the top performers, and then we need a new manager, and somebody brings somebody external that nobody knows out of the blue. Yeah, and that person might not know this job, might not know the technicality how to perform better. However, he has leadership skills and has management skills. So who do you choose, and how you navigate this, or how you mitigate this problem that also got a translation into culture, because the fact that you are a great performer and your position at work, that doesn't mean that you have a leadership skills and you're going to be a good leader. And this is what you need in management position. This is what you need in board meeting. A very common challenge into organizations out there. And basing your basketball experience, can we do something about? Can we start to train these people in leadership and see if they have leadership skills before we bring them to management position? Or we bring them to management position, we realize that they are not leaders, and now we need to start to work with these people. What we do with this problem?
Well, I love the analogy that I'll sometimes use with basketball. And you can certainly acknowledge that in basketball, great players don't always become great coaches, right? It's a very different set of skills. And I think it's the
100%.
same way in business and in sales organizations specifically, but in any organization where somebody is a high performer in their role. My job when I'm looking to develop others and I'm looking to identify who are going to be potential leaders in the future for my organization, those one-on-one conversations I'm having with them every week are unbelievably important because it helps me to know that individual and what is his or her desire moving forward. Because some people, to your point, they absolutely value the role they're in. They want to be a superstar in that role, and they don't want to climb the mountain to be anything different. But for those
Maybe they don't have even the
performers,
skills yet.
yeah, but for those that want to leave that position and continue to acquire new skills and go on to new challenges, absolutely, you want to give them those opportunities to become managers and leaders, but that's with the understanding on their part and on your part that you're going to need to equip them, because leadership is a very different set of skills than sales or any other role. If I'm going into a leadership role as an engineer, leading people is a very different set of skills than what I actually had when I was doing a great job as an engineer and just an individual contributor. And so I think that the reason that nearly 2/3 of leaders or managers fail in their role isn't because they're not smart and capable and good. It's because they don't have a coach or a mentor or somebody putting them through the training that gives them the insights and the tactics to be better in a different role.
Yeah, to make the question easy for everybody to understand, do you put in your basketball team your high performer as a captain? Sometimes we see football teams and we see, wow, this guy is not even one of the best players. Why is he a captain? Why they put this guy as captain of the team? He sometimes he's not one of the best performers. We see this in the sport all over and over. So you as a coach, as a basketball coach, you had experience. Tell us what are the difference, what are the fundamentals that you apply in order to choose what will be the captain of your team, what will be the person that will substitute this captain if he's an injured or is not in the bench, compare with the high performance, and can high performance be captain, but are they choosing because the high performer, or you looking something else to make them captain of the basketball team? So maybe with this analogy, it's gonna be more easy for CEOs of the medium and large organizations to understand the difference.
I love that question as it applies to business, because the listeners to this show have people that are very talented that they would love to be leaders. And the reality is, in basketball and business, your best talent isn't always going to be your best leader. Leadership is a different set of skills. And I for that reason, as a basketball coach, and I was contrary in a number of the things that I did. We never, as a coaching staff, identified captains. I wanted my captains to self-select.
Wow,
and you're going to see the
that's
same
more
thing
powerful,
as a leader.
very powerful, eh?
People will identify themselves as a leader in an organization.
And the team also will identify them, right?
They're the ones who are not just willing to step up and go in, to meet with the referees at the beginning of a game to do. But the leaders that identify themselves, they're the ones in your offices and in your meetings who are already self-selecting because they're doing their job well and they're looking for ways to contribute, and they're not just pointing at others, they're pointing at themselves, and they take the initiative and they take the ownership and they're asking to do more already. And those are the people that you're looking to delegate to, so you can help to develop them into those roles that they already have shown a proficiency for.
Can we apply this in corporate? I think it's going to be very powerful if actually the leaders can sex select, meaning that because somebody has to be comfortable in the leadership position. Not everyone can be a good leader, and not everyone be comfortable in this position. But also, even if you want to be a leader, even if you want to be a boss, even if you want to be, you need the skills. You have to practice the thing. This thing, it doesn't, you cannot even read it in a book. It doesn't get learned in a book. It's a skill. The more you practice, the better you become. Even I remember back in the day when I started my business, my first business, we managed to sell over 5 million. I didn't even know what leader was, and I didn't even know that if I don't become a leader, I will be never. My company is never gonna perform, and so I went to the position to telling everybody I'm a big boss. Everybody has to do whatever I say. In the first 2 years, until the second 2 years, when I tell them, okay, if you have a problem, bring some solutions, and we pick the solutions, and we use this one, and we try it, and if we don't like it, we try something else that you propose. And one day I arrived to the office and they told me, Harry, we don't need you anymore, go home. We can grow this company without you. I'm like, what? You don't need paper in the photocopy? No, we can get our own paper. Go home, travel the world, whatever. We don't need you here. So it's amazing. And I realized that by accident, I had this transition uh, where I started, I didn't know any better. Like, okay, this is a business. I'm the boss. Everybody have to do whatever I say and take all the decisions. Whether I realized that this thing was really exhausting and it actually didn't work. And to be honest, all my employees, they were better than me at everything. So one day I'm thinking at home, I say, I think if I let them do it, they're going to get way far more than me because they are all better than me at everything. I'm like, with my team members, I'm like, guys, how you doing this? They were selling better than me. They were doing this better than me. They were doing everything better than me. So I said, let me empower them. Let me release some control, something that at the beginning you want to hang into the business. If you don't want to release control, but if you surrender to that ego and you have that transformation and you start to practice to be a leader, the payoff, I've done it, I live it myself, is amazing because the first day that you are alone in your house, you're a little bit confused, but the second day that you're there and all this money is coming and you're not doing anything and you see everybody enroll with the company, I'm like, wow, this is unbelievable. I couldn't believe that I actually pulled this off. I was so happy with myself. I was so happy with them, and they were also more happy. They were running the company without me, you know. So
Well,
they,
I
yeah.
think that's such, and that you stumbled upon some of those answers is unbelievably beneficial for you and your team members. The issue is not every leader makes that realization or comes to those insights as quickly or as easily. And they do struggle and they do run people off and lose good people because they're commanding and controlling instead of staying curious and giving people a chance to actually grow and contribute what they can do without you. And I think that oftentimes leaders and entrepreneurs and startups, as busy as you are in the front end of building something, if you're going to scale and my job as a parent, my job as a coach, my job as a leader of a business is to make myself valued but unnecessary. It's nice to be wanted and for people to reach out and look for advice and appreciate, but if I'm unnecessary as a parent, it's because I taught my children to have the values and to make decisions that allow them to succeed. And it's the same way as a coach. It's the same way in business as a leader. If you can make yourself unnecessary because you've given people the opportunity to grow and to develop into roles that then allow that business to scale, you've done a fantastic job.
Sure. So if you go to a company with the main culture is command and control, and this is the culture of the company, how can you help these people?
Well, I think that something like that always becomes a waterfall situation. And if you have to start at the top of the waterfall,
but they will call you because they are underperforming. They have a command and control culture. They beat the company like this. They struggle. It was a lot of resistance. They're pushing, but somehow they manage. They are there. It's underperforming, a lot of friction always in the company and everything, a command and control culture from the top to the bottom. Everybody do what the boss said, no question asked and everything. And then they call you, to Shen, we need to increase performance. How can you help us? What do you do with this type of company or that have this type of culture?
Yeah, I think that there's always evidence of issues. And if you go into an organization, you're going to see symptoms of problems that other people may be unaware of. And my job when I'm coaching a leader is to make sure that I help them move from unaware to symptom aware, to them understanding the problems you're seeing here, the issues that you're dealing with here are just symptoms of the real problem. And if we address that real problem, the solution is easy. And I think that climbing that kind of awareness ladder of going from unaware to symptom aware to problem aware to solution aware, that's part of my job as a coach, is to help them to begin to see and to be more aware of the things that maybe they weren't seeing as a leader. So when your results have begun to plateau. When you're really good people who you knew were going to be shooting stars and wanted to be better, when they start leaving your organization because they feel that there's a ceiling on their initiative, that becomes pretty problematic. And that's when people will sometimes reach out and say, hey, Sean, I need somebody to come in and consult or to coach with or to work with my team. And oftentimes that starts with the leader of the team being more aware of how command and control is limiting their team. And once I become a little bit more curious and a little bit more compassionate and a little bit more encouraging and trusting in terms of delegating things to the team members, the results begin to skyrocket again, because people feel that trust and that opportunity to take action on the things that for a number of years or for a number of quarters or for whatever that length of time has been, that they felt limited and they didn't take the initiative because they didn't want to have somebody tell them not to.
Yeah. So, and also culture can be, you can modify and improve the culture of the company, because this happened in my own organization where I didn't know any better. So we all, most of the entrepreneurs, they become entrepreneurs by accident, like they want to solve a problem for themselves, and after they start to solve the problem for other people, somebody pays the money, and there you go, you're in business. You don't you start in this journey, and you do without knowing the thing you think it's right. And probably at the beginning, because we don't know any better, we start a type of control and command situation when we hire people, and because we don't know any better. However, it happened, this cultural transformation in my own organization, that actually changed me personally completely, from being exhausted, being tired, being over controlling, being emotionally with a lot of pressure and lack of sleep and things, to freedom, happiness, joy, just by changing the culture, by changing myself. And after I changed myself, that got reflected in the culture of the company, and I set myself free. So I think that, in my experience, the culture of the organization is a reflex of the culture of the people at the top. And
Absolutely.
if the people on the top are not willing to go through this transformation process, Sean, they will never find out that there is something amazing on the other side of the door, where you can have a happy team performing amazing, and less tension, and have a happy company. Whether so it comes to, but then, Sean, you go to speak with these CEOs, being there, and they're the big deal, they're making a lot of money, they know everything, and then you go and try to communicate that with them, and it's quite challenging, because they can have 4,000 employees on the thing, and then you go this with these ideas, and sometimes is hard to make them to understand that ego. And don't get me wrong, all the entrepreneurs, we have ego, because otherwise we won't be entrepreneurs in the first place. We think that we can do better. But there is a point that ego, we have to surrender and become a leader for real, and translate the leadership culture into organization. And this is sometimes, the friction is there, because the people at the top of the organization, they just don't want to change, and if they don't change, I don't see how the situation will improve. So how you communicate, because maybe with a basketball team, coach, you might have different same situation. You might think that, well, how come we have a better performance, and we are not winning? How is it possible? We have better players.
Well,
We have better players, and we
be...
go better players than the other team. And what's going on that we're not winning? How you improve this in a sport because actually happens and several times, yeah. And guess worse, always they always blame the manager. They say that 75% of the fault is the manager or
Absolutely.
the team. So on top of that, you get the blame. So tell us how we can translate the same, because in the sport happens the same thing. So you see again and again in
Well, I think
football
the
team.
question that you're
Yes.
asking, Harry, is about how do you make sure that the important members of your team, especially the leadership, stay coachable. And the reality is
That's the
every
question.
leader,
That's the question.
every leader it has achieved a level of success because they were coachable, because they were curious, because they were willing to listen and learn and change and grow and get feedback and take advice and implement those ideas and be uncomfortable. And the ceiling to improvement for any leader or team member is going to be their ego and their complacency. And that idea of a ceiling being the thing that limits our growth, and that we obviously are then going to limit the growth of our company, is a hard pill to swallow for a number of leaders. But the reality is, if you want to stay coachable, it means you want to be better, but you are also willing to change. And oftentimes leaders reach a certain plateau and they do become complacent and they do become arrogant and they stop looking for ways to improve because they get comfortable, and comfort ultimately kills. If you're not disrupting your industry, you are about to be disrupted, right? And so the idea of how do you help somebody to stay coachable? Well, that's one of the steps in sticky cultures is you want to build winning teammates. You want to make sure that those team members are coachable. You want to make sure that you take those coachable team members and make them effective leaders, and you want effective leaders to build a great culture. And ultimately, that kind of cyclical nature of a sticky culture is important. But if you want people to be more coachable, it's a 4-step process. And the first is, where do you want to be? Where are you now, being the second step? And then if you can identify a gap between those two things, that's going to give people that sense of dis-ease, and in terms of the gap that's created between where they want to be and where they currently are based upon numbers, not excuses. And that gap is what gives people the chance to examine number 3, which is, what is something that you're not doing? Who do you need to look to for advice or insights that you can implement outside yourself? And then finally, what are the habits? And I think that idea of hunger and honesty and humility and habits, those are the things that help people move past a plateau to become coachable and to actually get to the next mountain that they want to climb.
Yeah, so to sum up, if you want your company to perform and you want to increase productivity and you want to be disrupted, be coachable. Be
Absolutely.
coachable and drop that ego, surrender to it. And I know that we are all very happy seeing that we are the big deal and and all that. But if you surrender to that and you allow the leadership within yourself to prosper, and you become a better leader, you're definitely gonna have better company and better profit. So, Shane, if somebody's in love with our conversation, how people can find you, how this process works?
Thank you so much for asking, Harry. It's been absolutely such a thrill to be able to spend some time with you and your audience. If they wanted to find me online, you can find me on LinkedIn at Sean Glaze. My website is Sticky Cultures, where you can find me in my new book, which comes out June 12th. What Effective Leaders Do is available on Amazon and on my website. And I would love to be a resource for your leaders if they're looking for insights or tactics or resources to lead more effectively. I have a toolbox of free resources that I think you're going to be able to make available on the show notes.
Thank you so much, Sean. And with that note, see you everyone in our next episode of Unstoppable, how brave entrepreneurs like Sean break that wall and achieve the best one. Bye for now.
Follow us for more interviews with world's most influential, audacious entrepreneurs that overcame challenges and adversity, providing you with the blueprint of how they sold their first million so you can grow your business exponentially.